Welcome to Aquarium 911, where I help you with your aquarium problems. Today, we've got a fish breeding email. And you might be like, fish breeding? Bentley? He ain't going to give you the right answer. And you'd probably be right. However, this particular situation is something that I am surprisingly familiar with through my friends that have talked to me about this problem. So already you should know I probably have an idea on how we're going to fix this problem, but let's dive into our email and we'll get a better idea of what's going on. Our email today is from Scott, and he's having a little trouble with his Congo Tetras. I'm so glad I was able to track down your email address. I really like your approach and your knowledge. Fish breeding, not so good, but I appreciate you. I've had a fish tank pretty much all of my life, from goldfish to discus, so you've already done more than I have. Because I've stayed in like 2 wheelhouses forever, and goldfish was never one of them that I was ever good at. I can raise fish and get them to breed, as well as plants, but this one has me stumped. I'll give you the parameters and the process, and maybe you can assist me get a spawn that works. If it does, there's a reward in for it. I don't need any reward. The reward, honestly, for me is helping people, and I joke you not, I mean this legitimately. One of my favorite parts about having done YouTube now for 7 years? Good Lord, have I been doing it that long? I mean, I've really been dedicated since 2019, but I've been putting out fish content longer than that. I'm getting close to, I think 7 or 8 years at this point. I might almost be at 8. Oh, I'm getting old. Anyway, I'll send you some fish. No need. Time is money, but here we go. I agree time is money, but sometimes there are things that don't bring in money, but bring in an emotional side of good that are worth more than money, if that makes sense. Like, time with my wife is worth more than money, as an example. We have a 20-gallon, sand-bottomed breeder, mature tank, 2 sword plants, root tabs, a Fluval 50 hang-on-the-back filter, so I'm assuming aqua clear. Clear water, filter cleaned weekly, no carbon, a sponge, matrix bio rocks, polyfill floss, temp 80 to 82, seasonal summer AC in the house, so about 75 to 78 in winter using a heater. 2 to 3 year old pairs of Congo Tetras breeding every 2 days. So you've got them down as far as getting actual eggs reliably. That can be one of the hardest things for a lot of people. pH to breed is GH manipulated with C-chem acid to make 6 pH water from the tap. KH is 300 to 500. See, I really need to know your actual GH, but I've read this email ahead of time, so I kind of know, but I would say in the future, one thing we actually want to pay attention to, even though I know you're trying to manipulate it with acid buffer, is what is the water out of the tap, and then what is it after we're manipulating it with that buffer? What does our general hardness sit at? Because I have a feeling I know the answer, but it's just extra detail that you and I can use as kind of weapons in our arsenal to really solve this puzzle. No CO2. C-chem alkaline buffer is used when pH gets below 6.0. When breeding, I test daily, or I add aged tap to raise levels versus chemicals. Aged water is at least 48 hours old in a garbage can with an air stone and small filter. You are doing this in the most doomsday prepper style that a fish person probably could do. And by that I mean you are very, very prepared and you're educated about your local water and how to kind of play this very careful balancing game when you do need to manipulate things like pH and hardness levels. So kudos to you, Scott, because you're doing way more than I ever would. I'll just be honest with you. Oh, man. Arizona, hard water. GH and KH are high. Non-H tap is 8.0 or higher pH. Nitrates 10 to 30 ppm. C-chem nitrogen 1 time a week. Post-water change. And none if post-water change is 10 ppm or more. So you're purposely keeping your nitrogen pretty suppressed, which is fine. No ammonia, no nitrates. Phosphates 2 to 4 ppm, which is a desired level, dosed twice a week. Potassium dosed twice a week. Iron dosed twice a week. Trace twice a week. Flourish dosed twice a week. You have one of the best examples, I think, of where, because you have some interesting water parameters, you're trying to do really specific things while having plants in your tank. You have one of the best examples of where the flourish line actually is useful, despite me vehemently complaining about it. We'll get past that. All fertilizer doses are recommended dose calculations from C-chem bottle based on a 20-gallon tank. I pull the mop or I leave it in the tank with parents for a few days or 2 spawn. Once I pull the mop, I clean it, rinsing it with the parents' tank water to remove all debris and get the eggs out, etc. Once I have the eggs out of the mop, I rinse them with tank water to make sure there's no debris. Put them into a gallon jug with an air hose, 2 bubbles every second so they have gentle water flow over the eggs, but not tumbling. And 1 drop of methylene blue. So methylene blue we add just as an informational piece here. That little drop in 1 gallon is just enough, usually, to act as an antifungal to prevent eggs from fungusing. If we were dealing with like the white fuzzy eggs, often methylene blue is the way that you fix this, and in that low a dose, it's just enough to prevent antifungusing without causing any other potential risks to the eggs themselves. I've tried the recommended dose on the bottle for the blue, and 48 hours later, my eggs were blue. It seems I can get the eggs to the 3rd day with no fungus on a singular drop. Then it always comes. I've done a bunch of water changes to try to remove spores from the water, but I've had 5 failed hatches. When the eggs are laid, with 2 to 4 hours, a little white thing appears on the inside, and that tells me it's fertilized. But over the next 2 or 3 days, they become a little bit more cloudy, and you can't see inside as much. On the 3rd day, you typically see eyeballs. So they're very, very fast in how they go from egg state to hatch, it sounds like, which I'm not super familiar with the Congo Tetra, like, breeding and raising cycle, but I don't necessarily need to be. I'm used to rainbows, which take for freaking ever. It's like 14 to 20 days. It's a nightmare. I cannot see any movement inside. My eyesight isn't great, but I'm using a 30x magnification glass. It's hard to distinguish between a viable egg and a lightly fungused one. Some people say it's 4 days to hatch. Some people say it's 6 or 7 days. No matter what is mine, don't hatch. I could really use some recommendations here. I've tried to do this in a gallon jug. I hang on the back breeder box with only a quart of water and methylene blue. I tried bare bottom 10-gallon tank by itself with nothing in it. Put the eggs in there with the same parameters as the parents. No luck. Same thing over and over. Do you have any suggestions, questions for me? Thanks, Bentley. I enjoy your channel and the information. I hope you can help me out. I'll do the same in return to you. Cheers, mate. No need to help me, Scott. No need. I'm helping you, and that helps me by a certain amount of products. 1, it gives me a video for my channel. And 2, I just really enjoy helping people. No joke. I legitimately enjoy helping people. It's just part of who I am. I'm very weird. P.S. I went 0 ferts for a week and a water change in between and had no difference in the spawn, the same result, dead embryos. I'm frustrated, but I always like a challenge. I can't find anywhere on the internet what the exact parameters should be. Scott. We don't have pictures, but we don't need them. So here's the thing. Some species of eggs deal with a problem in extremely hard water, and this is actually common typically for soft water species, but it does happen to a number of rainbow species as well, and there's some other fish, and I've heard this through my friends who live in liquid rock, some of which are even in Arizona, like you. And here's how this works. In really hard water, this is why I say I really would love to hear the actual numbers of hardness before and after you're doing your buffering work. There's a calcification process that can occur, right? Because our general hardness is magnesium and calcium, and that's the one that's killing us because it's necessary. It's very important for your fish. But what can happen with certain species, and I'm taking a guess here, a little leap in the darkness, that what's happening is the outside of the embryo, right, that shell, is calcifying, and it's getting just hard enough because of the water parameters that the embryo can't break free. And so it's never able to fully hatch because the outside of the shell is too tough. We're dealing with a little bit of a fungus issue, and there's a couple ways we can solve this. I usually have a couple of these lying around my fish room, but I don't have one with me right now. Rather than using a breeding box, you could potentially use a separate tank. And if you're familiar with Dean's fry system, I've got a whole video where he walked through it. He's improved it several times since then. There's also an alternative through Swiss Tropicals, if you want to do, which is called a German breeding ring. And basically, similar to how you're using airflow, it uses a very small amount of air in this little system to get water movement to help keep that movement there to help prevent fungus. What I would do is this. Either A, I would try one of those German breeding rings. Or B, I would try, there's a number of 3D printed versions of the fry trace system that Dean uses, and if you have a little space for an extra rearing tank, you mentioned you had a 10-gallon at one point, you might be able to pull this off. I will have a link in the description below, and I'll email this to you as well. Try one of these trays to get your water movement, but to also have your methylene blue. And try to get your methylene blue very similar to where you've had, where you can get 3-4 days where you're not dealing with fungus on your eggs. So how do we deal with the calcification problem? Well, we have 2 options. Either A, we could go buy something like distilled or an RO unit, right? We could use distilled water, that's one way to do it, or we could use an RO unit to pull all that hardness out of the water, and then naturally add just enough, because you can't do pure RO or pure distilled, that will kill them. But you could use something like Seachem's buffer, because you're using a lot of Seachem products, it's probably what's easiest and available to you. Buffer it up to about 4, maybe 5 degrees of hardness. And you should be able to kind of play some games and make sure that you're getting your pH where you want it to be similar to an adult tank or a rearing tank, whichever you're looking to do. But my goal here would be bring that hardness down to where we're something like 100 TDS or about 4 degrees roughly of general hardness. We want to bring the amount of calcium down, still use that little methylene blue, but you like a challenge and you seem like a pretty dedicated fish breeder. So I think like making these changes, maybe even using a dedicated hatching setup, is not out of the realm for you, because you seem like the kind of person that wants to dive. And more importantly, I want to see you find success, because what I want to hear is that there's somebody who is successfully breeding Congo Tetras after a number of struggles within the United States. Because that would just make me smile, like biggest smile. Because if I eventually saw at one point, Scott, that someone like Dan's Fish was selling tank-raised, US-bred Congo Tetras, and I could be like, I think I know where those come from, I would be very, very excited. I would be very happy. I would feel like I did my part. My thoughts. Let's get us a dedicated raising tank as opposed to that 1 gallon jug. I think either the German breeding rings from Swiss Tropicals, or I would actually opt for like those 3D printed setups that are off Etsy that even Dean uses some of them now, and some modified versions. They're really, really good. They've got a little corner sponge filter to prevent things. They bring really gentle water flow. You can add an airline just to add a little bit more oxygenation if you want to play it super safe. But these are really, really effective for a lot of species. And I think if they work for rainbows, they can work for you. We bring that water down either by an RO unit, or we go temporarily and we get like some distilled water. If you have a local saltwater store near you, many of the saltwater-based stores sell RO. So you could probably go in and buy large jugs of RO to keep yourself an amount of RO on a relatively cheap cost, rather than go full out buying an RO unit blind and test this. And that might be the first thing we try is, what if we get RO water in our 1 gallon jug and we get it up, right? You've been aging water, so you could do kind of a blend until you get right to about 100 TDS or about 4 degrees of general hardness. That should get us about, I think, especially if you were like dealing with something that's probably 300-400 plus because of your natural like hard water in Arizona. I think if we bring that down, we're going to start seeing successful hatches. I think that's our problem. I don't think it's fungus. We still need to use a little methylene blue to be safe, but I don't think it's the fungus that's beating us right now. I think our problem is that dang hardness that's in your water. That's my battle plan. I'm going to have a link down below to the Etsy shop that has those particular things. I don't earn any commissions from that at all. I know them. They're really well built. Master Breeder Dean speaks really highly of them. It's worth a shot. I'll also have the German breeding rings from Swiss Tropicals. They're a little expensive, but they are pretty phenomenal for just floating a little ring in a tank and kind of isolating your eggs somewhere, and you can have lots of little batches, in theory, in a tank until they get to a size where you'd want to release them in a larger tank, or maybe even in the same tank you're using. It depends on how you're trying to do your setup. I really hope that helps, Scott. For the rest of you, if you've enjoyed this video, if you learned something, leave a comment down below, leave a like. These are the 2 best ways for free to tell Papa YouTube, hey, I like this. Someone else might too. It helps our channels a ton when we're in the YouTube sphere. Like, comment. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It is literally the best way to help all of our channels grow and prevent us from taking stupid sponsorships and minimize ads, because I know we all hate ads. If you need my help, if you need to get on Aquarium 911, there is a link in the description below that has the original video, Let Me Help You. That will tell you everything that I need in order to eventually help your question. Just a reminder, I'm not really good at fish disease because usually I take a bit of time, and by then disease has kind of done its course. But things like this where we're having some trouble spawning fish, or things where we're dealing with plant issues, algae, that I can usually help with in a reasonable amount of time. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.